Let's see. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to February. My goodness, time is going, huh? Let me read our statement of commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. The Scituate Waterways Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there's a disagreement. We value the participation of our community, and we want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Thank you. We'll go out of order a little bit. Rick's got to get out of here a little early tonight for a meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
You say you just want to amend the date that's on it.
I see that.
Good.
Amend. We have a so moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a bunch of meeting minutes. We've finally been able to get most of those squared away. I hope that people have had a chance to take a peek at them. I'm sorry there were a ton of them. We go all the way back to October. I read through them about 3 times. There's still a couple minor changes that I have to make. But thanks again to TJ for doing those way back when. For me, the first page was good. The second page, there was the last line on the harbor master building improvements.
Dave?
Yes, sir.
Which month are you talking about?
We're still on October.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's page 2, harbor master building improvements. The last line, it says, the harbor master anticipates finalizing proposals by June of 2025, and that has to be changed to November of 2025. The feasibility study will actually conclude in June of 2025. It was that one.
Why does that date have to be changed to November?
Because it anticipated that the feasibility, let's see, the fisheries. The feasibility study, the request for proposal, we're just sort of clarifying that the request for proposals would be completed by November of 25. And then they would go into the actual building of the project, which would be completed in June of 2025. If that makes sense. Were there, oh, and then liaison reports, just a misspelling of my name on Economic Development Commission. Did anybody have any other comments or suggestions on October of 2024? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of October 24. Anyone?
Minutes for October 2024.
Second.
That's good, Dave. Thank you. Okay. I'm almost there. Any more discussion? If not, roll call vote. Since we have people away. Brian Kelly.
Aye.
Dave Sinkowski.
Aye.
Howie.
Aye.
Rick Murray.
Aye.
Dave Haley. TJ. Stephen. And I say yes. Okay, those are approved. Thank you.
Brian Cronin.
Oh, Brian
Yes.
Cronin's here. Oh,
Yes.
welcome, Brian.
Thank you for a short time. I've got a meeting with Rick later on.
Ha.
So do I.
Thank you. Okay. November. Anybody have any comments or suggestions on November? I have a couple. Commission members present, associate members on the third line, Mike Gibbons, Mike DeMayo, and Nick. So I added Nick's name. financial update, which is sub item A, Scituate Boat Works lease. This information will be sent to the town attorney. Just need a little bit more clarification.
Dave,
Yes, sir.
thank you. I think the second part of that needs to be strucken from the report as well.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Project's budget, and I just added on the feasibility study for the Harbor Master Building. The project's budget is set to not to exceed $140,000 and is due, and I added and is due by the end of June 2025. That was it. That's all I had. Did anybody else have anything else interesting? With none hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 6, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? We'll do our roll call if I can find my freaking cheat sheet. Here we go. Brian Cronin.
Yes, aye.
Brian Kelly.
I'll be like Brian Cronin. Aye, yes, aye.
Dave Sinkowski.
Howie.
Howie Kretzenberg.
Yes, aye.
Rick Murray.
Yes.
Dave Haley.
Yes.
TJ. Stephen Moan.
Okay.
Dave Deneen. Yes, that passes. Thank you. As everybody knows, for our final set, December's, well, Alicia and I have got our act together finally, and I'm sorry that one's not done yet. But I don't know, did anybody have a chance to look at January's?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you good with them?
No.
Thank you. I want to hold those because there was a lot of information. We had a Katie stand in for Alicia, and there were a couple things that we needed to try to. There's a couple more pieces that we should go through, so I'd like to hold December and January, and we'll have those ahead of time for our next meeting. If everybody's good with that, hello.
Oh.
That's good. Thank you for that. There is no correspondence. Chairman's report, select board meeting. A bunch of us attended the select board meeting on the 21st of January. Stephen was asked and us to come back and talk about fees for waterways. As we did at our last meeting, we put together a memo and we sent it to them in 10 days ahead of their meeting so that they had a chance to look at it. We attended the meeting and they were not overly happy with that, and they wanted something done immediately. So we went through and they had their plan, and they put out some charts for everybody, and they agreed as a board there to raise the rates of the marinas for 2025 season by 10%. Scituate residents will now be paying $121 a foot. Non-Scituate residents $170 per foot. Also, for patrons who cannot or do not want to pay the additional rate, they can contact the harbor master's office and request a refund. I haven't heard anybody, I haven't received any correspondence on somebody that may want to get out of that, but they just have to reach out to Stephen, and Stephen will be able to provide them a refund. The only other question that I had was that with that, Stephen, what happens if somebody comes off the list? You just go over to the waiting list and grab the first one?
What we do,
Very good.
nothing changes.
We now have down up to September to try to go and look at other fees that were discussed at that meeting, which includes looking at mooring rates, looking at whether or not we put in for an electrical rate, whether or not we look at adding water rates, and then just coming up with a schedule for the next 5 years. I think as we mentioned last month, they talked about having all the boards and commissions come to the select board once every year now to talk about rates and charges. So that's where that stands right now. So we will probably get back to work and look at some of the options and go back to having a detailed plan on how we're going to try to make it try to increase the rates for to keep the money going. So, are there any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was at the meeting, obviously, and while I was disappointed that the select board didn't follow our recommendation, we are advisory in nature only, and so we advised them and here's what they were gonna do. I think the town administrator played a very strong role in a positive way because there was some movement under the conversation about having the rates be even higher, and the town administrator argued for the modest 10% increase, which I appreciated, so things didn't get too out of control in the context of a meeting. I think we should really try to shoot for the June timeframe that we said we would try to do in our memo. I think we should really start working on compiling that information and almost get a draft document together, which I could just flesh out. Then just has placeholders where, here's a table that shows what the other towns have for this, and the other thing. And so here's what we recommend, and we leave that blank until we figure it all out. But I think we could really make progress on this in the next month or two. So we could have it really out to our constituents with ample time ahead. We did commit to having it publicly announced at one of our meetings as well to get public feedback. And so I think we should really get started on it. One thing I was surprised by, and I will withhold some of my comments about, was the board had a graph that they had that we did not have the opportunity to review ahead of time, that I believe was of retained earnings, or perhaps retained earnings as a fraction of some other denominator. It couldn't really figure it out because we didn't have much time to look at it. And I see Brian has his hand raised, which is excellent. But I do think we need to probably write a follow-up memo solely focused on what the retained earnings story is or is not. So it's crystal clear that there's not two sets of numbers floating around, whatever the heck that graph was from the board. As well as, the different numbers that Brian and Nancy have worked out and come to some agreement on together. So I think as a separate matter from the fee discussion, stimulated by that fee discussion, we need to make sure us and the town have a complete understanding what the retained earnings are, because that was driving their decision. And I was a little troubled by some of that process, but it is what it is. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. To get back to the beginning part of your comments is that we've already started working on those numbers.
Yeah.
And Brian Kelly, you're up.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. Murray, while I respect your opinion, I think that the amount of work that's going to be required to adequately pull together information, then have public hearings, is pretty significant. I met with Nancy before I came down to Florida. I received somewhere in the vicinity of 24-page Excel report that I have to chop up, disseminate, and break out. This is just strictly on our expense side, and allocate out to the different our strategic partners, be it slip holders, be it mooring, etc. And then understand what their contribution is towards operation expenses, less debt service not associated with those particular parties. It's a very, very large project. To be able to do that intelligently and then have a public hearing to be able to present this information, I think we're compressing this in too tight a window. And as the person who's going to be doing most of that work, I would hope that people would understand what I'm saying is true and respect that. That's the first part. The second part is, and this is just my opinion, the former was fact, but my opinion is we went in and presented to them a proposal to do a 5-year plan to hold off on any rate increases, and we would come back to them in June. They rejected that by summarily increasing slip fees. So I met with Nancy and asked her if she was comfortable with the September timeframe. She is, and I don't understand why the Board of Selectmen would, or rather the Select Board would feel any different. since they've gotten their rate increase for this year, the difference between us presenting to them in June and September is not significant, and it is to us regarding the work that has to be done.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's great. I thought that's fantastic. If they're fine with September, I'm fine with September too.
No, I didn't, Rick, I didn't say they were, I said Nancy was.
Yeah, okay, yeah, understood.
Okay.
Yeah, understood. And I understand it's gonna be a lot of work, but I really think focusing on the fees and stuff like that is, you know, where we really need to go on this. So, yeah, it's gonna be work, but I think we really can get at it. My point is, I just don't wanna wait till July or August to get it going, you know?
Well, I'm working on it now. I'd be willing to present back to the committee. Probably the March, worst case, the April meeting, my first findings. Assuming, and it's 5 different buckets that we'd be looking at fee increases over 5 years. So once the board digests that, I would then advocate for a June public meeting, July public meeting to allow people to speak and give the feedback so they can understand it. And then with the proper public support, we would then we would give the select board their information in September. That's just my 2 cents.
We have a discussion on this as well at our next meeting and look at these buckets and see what they are and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Good.
Any other thoughts, comments, suggestions? Mike Gibbons.
Yeah, I would just say that I was pretty disappointed and still am regarding the last meeting or not our last meeting, but the select board meeting. And as a group that's kind of been together for a long time with a lot of expertise, kind of understanding the budgets and kind of what happens on the waterways and understanding retained earnings and everything else, we make some pretty good decisions over that. We voted as a group unanimously at that meeting to write the letter, and we did. It was a well-written letter. I thought it was a very good, you know, kind of attempt to kind of let them know, hey, we need a little bit of time so we can have a thoughtful approach to rate increases, right? Let's look at the whole thing, make a good 5-year plan with it, right, and do it. And I was pretty surprised that the select board, which has really been very supportive of us in the past. I mean, Rick, you were a select person, you're very supportive. Sean, been very supportive of everything that we've done over the years and given us kind of what we needed. I was just pretty much let down that the meeting ended up, and Stephen, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. You had voted to write the letter as well to have
Just sat here.
well, you can't just sit here in a meeting. You're a member of the committee. So you either say, yes, I'm in favor of it. No, I'm not in favor of it, or abstain from the vote.
I generally just
If they ask and there's no abstain and you didn't say no, and someone says it's a unanimous vote, then you voted for it, right? Unless you say otherwise at the time, right?
understood,
So
Mike.
it's very disappointing when we get into something like that, that the first thing that comes out is we want to raise them and we want to raise them for next year, right? So it set the table for a lot of disappointment, I think, right? I think, you know, I've heard from a whole ton of marina people that were a little surprised by it and said it's really not right to be done. Like we said, on the front side,
Yep.
right? While deposits have already been put in. And so I'm just saying that I'm just disappointed that the board, with all the expertise and the kind of the good track record that we have, kind of shoved it down our throat and kind of went with the willy-nilly, you know, 10%, yeah, it's 10%, but with so many other things we could have looked at. And then a lot of the emphasis was on the dredging cost, right? And I feel like the dredging cost should be shared amongst the mooring people, right? The waterway users, people in general, right? All use the waters and the marina patrons, right? That way it's spread out amongst everyone. So that's my 2 cents.
Anybody else?
I received one letter from a patron. Said still a bargain versus private dock options. Don't get me wrong, I like my money, but this is the right thing to do to maintain our docks. That was the only comment I got.
A comment to Mike's comment. I couldn't say it better than you did. I would only add that this is to me a good indication of lack of understanding from the select board about what we do here, and our communication could be better. Timing is perfect.
Timing, huh?
Yeah, great timing.
Oh, boy.
I wish you were here 4 minutes ago.
Oh, sorry about that. I
Um,
really
no
hard to
worries.
get at 6.
Thank you, Dave. Howie, yes, sir.
I'd like to echo what Mr. Gibbons said. I was very, very disappointed at what occurred. I thought our recommendation was well thought out and well presented. And I'm not even sure, I didn't hear that the board even acknowledged that memo. But what made matters worse is that we agreed to one approach. And when asked, the harbor master says, let's do $30 a foot. And that's not what we had talked about. So I question the collaboration that we have with the harbor master's office, because we got sideswiped and now we're rushing it. I would like to thank the work that Brian Kelly does. It's an enormous amount of work. And when we say we should work on this, well, who the heck is we? Brian? I mean, we've got to come up with a better resource. This is not it's not fair. Thank you.
I was very disappointed that charts brought out before we've even had a chance to look at it and respond in a public meeting. I was very disappointed as well. We've really tried to do a good job and, be very thoughtful. Mike just spoke a little bit about that as well, that, this group's been around for a long time and is really, they understand how the finances go. And it was a tough thing to be a part of. But we are going to hold our heads up high and we're going to continue to move forward. We're going to try to collaborate a little bit better with Town Hall so that we're not blindsided again. Does anybody else? TJ?
So just a point of clarification, I did watch, I was out of town, but I was able to watch the meeting. When we talked about the dredge, one of the, I guess, data points that was presented was like, hey, we need to pay for dredging. But to Mike's point, I think Mike raised it, like, everybody uses that waterway. Is there any consideration on how to actually kind of disperse that out amongst our boating population? I don't think the mooring or the slip holders should saddle that whole fee, because we do have people that launch at the boat ramp and use our waterway. And they take advantage of any dredging that comes, but I don't think that it should be on the backs of the slip holders to actually have to be held accountable in a public setting, to kind of shoulder that expense. And I may have read that wrong, but just ask some clarification on what we've done in the past as far as, obviously we get grant money, we look at, our earnings, but to have that kind of a data point, I thought was interesting to me, because we just don't have the background and understanding how that could draw up.
Thank you.
We can investigate mooring fees as well as part of our conversation.
It is part of that, yes, as well as looking at the waterways fee to make sure that it's being charged appropriately. So just so everybody knows, some of the other work that's been going behind it is we've been looking at those things. We've been looking at ways to increase more of the moorings and make sure that we're capturing all the moorings that we can. Looking to see whether or not we should be actually changing. Right now, it's a waterways fee, and whether or not it should be actually changed to be a waterways permit, which may give us a little bit more latitude to do a little bit more. We've already looked at, as everybody knows, ways to try to create some revenue for people that are just putting their boats in at Jericho, and we sort of struck out with that one, and we're going to continue to try to dig. But that's why we wanted to have the time to just sort of show them where we are, what we're trying to accomplish, to really put together a good 5-year plan. Go ahead, Mike.
So I was at the same meeting, and I'll keep my comments to myself. You guys kind of covered it, but as far as the harbor use fee, is the Mill Wharf Marina paying the
They all pay
125?
it.
Yes.
They
All
all
the
paying,
Marines
so
pay.
everybody's kind of contributing
Even
already.
the Heron River Marina.
Yeah, so everybody's already kind of contributing
Hmm.
to some point, but like to the point of like the guys that use the boat ramp, well, they should be paying a fee to use their boat ramp, but you're not gonna hit everybody for a fee, but.
Right.
I mean, dredging costs a lot of money, a ton of money,
Mhm.
but, there should be some focus in the rivers as well. I mean, but, how many fees can you have? You're raising the slip fee. Like, where's all the harbor use fee money go for 125? Like, where's that? That's not going to a different pot of gold. Where's that going? You
Goes
know,
into the enterprise fund.
exactly.
Same place.
Yep.
Exactly, so.
But it is the biggest, if you're trying to encapsulate everyone, that's something that's common.
Yeah.
At least amongst all the boat owners, so.
Yeah.
So if our biggest really challenge is money for dredging, because that's really the biggest cost we have when we look at the projects that are out there.
Yep.
That's one that at least shares so that everyone pays towards it.
Mhm.
I guess
For the
maybe do betterments then. Say marina, but not gonna happen, but the town does have an obligation to provide safe navigation.
Yep.
So regardless of who pays what, the town's still obliged to make the harbor safe.
So I think, Brian, these are like the buckets you're talking about, right? I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
what the potential, there's slip fees, in town, out of town, mooring fees in town, out of town, there's user fee.
Mhm.
There's,
Situate Boat Works.
boat
The
works,
rental.
but yeah, but I mean, that's a separate negotiation contract, but when we're talking about fees of the immediate users.
Mhm.
I mean, Brian, I think those are the buckets you're referring to.
That
we're
is
gonna-
correct.
Right?
There's 4 buckets that 91% of our revenue comes from. You just
Yeah.
nailed them. And that is the lease revenue, which is Scituate Boat Works primarily. Slip fees, mooring fees, waterway use fee. Excise fees, really small. It's $41,000 on a revenue base of about 1.3 million. So it's not really significant. So I've gone out and done surveys of surrounding towns on their permit fees, also known as waterway use fee. I've done studies on current mooring rates, future mooring rates for surrounding towns, and I've also done for town marinas. All that information will be in a report that I can present to the committee. And with that will come with the projection of the future debt, primarily 2 items, that being the North and South River dredge and the harbor dredge. Combined, they're about low $200,000 for the first year in new debt service. So depending upon when they come on board, which is probably no sooner than 3 years away for one and 4 for the second, that will impact our debt service. In the meantime, our debt service continues to drop and will do, not significantly, but over the next several years until we add that new debt to it.
To Howie's point, about making sure the workload's distributed, Brian, maybe next week you and I could Zoom together and take a look at this and try to continue making progress and try to outline some boundaries on things. I'd be glad to help out if you wish.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Good question, Dave. Are we collecting these user fees from Freedom Boat Company?
I'll ask Stephen.
No, we don't. We collect it from the marina owner. Based on the number of slips.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yes.
We
That's
collect
a
it
yes.
From the marina
You
owner,
collect it from the marina, not the.
Yep.
not from,
Which makes sense.
Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So with all the dredging costs, you should also start trying to encapsulate what it's gonna cost to take all the moorings out of the water, put all the moorings back. So it's gonna be a couple $100,000. So be ready for that.
most of the dredging is gonna take place in the marine, in the 2 marinas around the top pier and then the back floats. Those are the 4 areas.
You're correct, Steve, but
There's not that many
the
more.
equipment's 200 foot long, so you have to move moorings to get the equipment and to get it in and out, which is gonna impact people. If and when you get to that point.
That's an excellent point, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you, Mike. Good. Dave,
I got 2 things, I guess.
where do you
One
live?
is, Dave Doffney, 356 Clap Road.
Thank you.
I was also at the meeting. What I didn't understand was there was a rate increase, but there was no dollar value assigned to the rate increase. In other words, it was a 10% increase, but what did that mean in dollars?
121 and 170.
Right, but then you have to multiply that, like we talked, we have to
Right.
multiply that by feet. So there's a footage, it's not per boat, so there's a
Right.
footage,
Right.
and that's part of the
Yeah.
equation, so.
Right.
I guess my point would be, there was a vote made to increase, but there was no end on the formula. There was no dollar value that was given at the meeting.
Just not
And that-
extrapolated out. is what you're
Right,
saying.
that bothered me, like, okay, we did an increase, but kind of everybody's hanging as to what that actually meant as far as footage goes, whether it's residential or non-resident. And that's my point on that. And the second point would be on the waterways fee that we pay. When that was instituted when it went from mariners to all boaters, I believe Harbor Master Moan changed that to a waterways maintenance fee.
There was some confusion back in the day
Yeah,
where it was called a water use fee.
right.
Then we changed it to the waterways user maintenance. So people didn't think
Right.
they were paying for
Right,
water.
so, but
They want to change it now to a permit, waterways user permit fee or maintenance.
who's
just
they, is that the
exactly.
select board?
No,
No, that's
this
us.
board.
Oh, okay. So, and my understanding with that,
That's,
Permit means that
Hang on.
Give you the take away. I don't like permit.
Well, David, continue.
and as I recall, some of that conversation had to do with that money, a portion of that money was used for dredging.
Mhm.
Or the maintenance, so I don't know if there's Brian would know better than myself, obviously, but is there money that's already been captured, set aside, that's spoken for to go towards dredging?
that money all goes in, all the fees that we collect go into the waterways enterprise fund.
Hmm.
And then a budget is put together. Budget's approved, and what is ever left over goes into the retained earnings. There's not there's not like like an account out there with just the waterways fees
Right,
in
do
it.
we budget every year a certain percentage for dredging?
No, we put in capital plan. The capital items.
David,
I just got Brian, an abridged edition for us lobstermen in the room at 10% on top of last year's.
75,000.
Where's that put us on our projections? I mean, are we still running out of money quickly, or are we just putting a finger in the dike here for a couple of years?
No. We're not, it's not so much, Dave, it's not so much running out of money as contributions to retained earnings. Right? So every year we want to be contributing to retained earnings because there's projects that come out of retained earnings. For example, if the harbor master needs a new engine, or if we need to do something in the $25,000 range, be it electrical or something else, that comes directly out of retained earnings. Retained earnings is secondarily used when we go for a grant. If we pull money out to reduce the total amount of debt that we would have to do. So the goal would be to increase retained earnings and I'm sorry, the third leg of retained earnings are, should we have a disaster, a storm, like we did in 2018, Storm Riley, where we need to respond quickly to get the marinas up and running, we had to spend out of retained earnings. And that was about $150,000 that we had to pull out of retained earnings. So between the three of them, we're looking to get retained earnings somewhere north of 300,000. Obviously, ideally, maybe closer to 4, so we can do those contribution events to A, allow us to do the year-to-year business, and B, lessen the amount of the debt service in the long term. I don't know if I answered your question, Dave.
Yeah, you did. I mean, obviously, you've told me in years past, you like to have, 3-ish, 4-ish in the bank, so to speak. How did that figure get beat down to where it is now?
We did probably somewhere in the vicinity of $5 or $6 million in projects over the past 5-6 years. That being the dredge project in the South River, the FEMA the Storm Riley event, the Harbor Master fireboat, the phase 1 of the Cole Parkway rebuild, the ice de-icers, which was about 50 grand, the pilings over in the Maritime Center, the pilings at Cole Parkway, the new dock at Cole Parkway, the pump out boat, new engines for one of Stephen's boats. So there's a number of events that caused the retained earnings to decline over the years.
Thank you.
And oh, by the way, this was an unmitigated, not unmitigated, this was unprecedented amount of spend. I went back 15 years. There was nothing like this at any point in the history of the Waterways enterprise. So we knew that these projects needed to be done. With full knowledge of debt service declining, we matched up the expenses to occur with that. We felt comfortable that running retained earnings sub $300,000 was acceptable because we knew that it would once we completed these projects, added the new debt, subtracted the debt that was coming off, that we would be adding to the retained earnings. This year, we will add approximately $150,000 to retained earnings.
Thank you.
Mike Gibbons.
I think Howie first, then me.
Nope. Howie, go ahead, please.
Brian, as a follow-up to the select board's meeting, you mentioned regarding slip revenue, that the budgeted slip revenue was significantly less than the prior year. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. So because the town does zero-based budgeting, your revenues can't exceed your expenses. So our revenues match what our expenses are projected to be for FY25. To have that match, we would have to have a decline of approximately $130,000 in revenue. That is directly tied to the slip fees. Slip fees in actual FY24 was $738,000. Proposed FY25 slip fees are $608,000. So what I tried to point out is that's an impossibility, that there is no way our slip fees at the old rate structure are going to drop by $130,000. Unless Stephen hasn't told us that he hasn't rented out 30% of a marina or 25% of a marina, I don't understand how slip fees could drop $130,000.
Well, how do we reconcile that? I mean, that's a significant amount of money, almost as much as going back to retained earnings.
Well, we can't because again, zero-based budgeting, so your revenues can't exceed your expenses. So I don't want to say people took their foot off the gas on the revenue side, but numbers don't lie.
So I guess, if I may speak to that for a second, so I guess the brighter side of that is that, right, we know that revenue is gonna be more, it's that 130,000 doesn't disappear, right? So one,
Right.
and I think you said 5 minutes ago was either 65 or 75,000 in the new fees for.
Yep.
For this year, right, so
New fees would be 69,000.
69,000,
923 based on.
so we'll call it
No. Wait a minute. I'm not sure we're getting 929,000. Our fees, our actual fees were 740, so that's almost a $200,000 increase.
No, she's saying,
I'm saying the
60,000.
difference, I was saying the difference, if the increase, if you go by I just tried to do the math, because based on Dave's question, by the footage, by just the increase, not the
I came
total.
up with 68,000, but right.
yeah,
right
she's
there.
got
It's like
69,923.
69,923
So-
based on.
It's
If
pretty
you-
simple. It's pretty simple. If we did 738,000 in actual 24 and we increased rates by approximately 10%, it'll be about $75,000 increase.
It will, but there's different, and I went by the resident versus non-resident based on how Nancy has it cataloged. And if it's resident versus non-resident, we're at 69, so,
It's
but
about
yeah.
70,
we're all
we're
very
within
close to the
5,000
same.
of each other.
Let's say 70, 60.
So we'll say 70,
69,
so
70.
the 70 with that 130 that's not really budgeted for
It's there though.
revenue, but it's there, right? We know it's there, right?
Yeah.
That's
That is
two,
correct.
right? And I think you said a couple minutes ago that without any of these changes, we were gonna drop roughly how much to retained earnings for this year? Or,
So we will add 150. So there's the 130 differential on the slip. If we just match what we did in FY24.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, the year before was 706, the year before was 750. So we're probably going to be right in that ballpark
Right.
conservatively.
Yeah.
So there's another 20 grand that I've identified that I is lower than I believe it should be. And frankly, that got me to the 150. So if I take that other 70 now and add to it, we're over $200,000 that will drop down to retained earnings.
Okay, that's what I was getting after, is trying to make sense of the numbers itself so that we understand what we think realistically is gonna drop to retained earnings at the end of the year.
And by the way, we're tracking to that. Remember, fiscal year ends June 30th.
Right.
We're more than halfway there. We're tracking to it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Brian, where are we with our retained earnings right now?
So our retained earnings were 353. However, we have committed over 106,000 or something on projects that were voted on in the I think it was one of the meetings. I can't remember. It was the fall, I believe it was. So that'll drop us down to about 218.
Thank you.
Just a moment on the resident versus non-resident. Brian, do you have a feeling for what the ratio is of residents and non-residents in this?
86% is resident, so that leaves you 14% non-resident.
Wow.
Wow is right.
So realistically, we could be at 438 in retained earnings if everything goes to plan for this year, right?
No, Mike, you want to use the 216 number. Remember, we have monies that's committed that haven't been spent. So
Yeah.
the 216. Oh, I see. If you're adding the rate, yes,
Yeah.
Mike, I stand corrected.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that'll get us back to a number that has been part of this group for a while, so.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure we were kind of focused in and know that that's the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where we were looking to be in the 400 and some odd range, so.
Any other comments?
Well, I do want to say something. Like, I know folks are not happy with how it played out, and there's definitely lessons we can all do better, including myself, but, I do want to say, like, it's really hard to sit in that seat on a select board when your finance director is telling you to increase rates, your town administrator is telling you to increase rates, and your harbor master is telling you to increase rates. Because the finance director wants us to be at a certain number for the health of the town. And that's not like this enterprise fund, other enterprise funds the same way with the golf, whether it's golf or water sewer, I feel like we have to increase quarterly. So it's difficult to do that. But it's really important for the town as a whole. So I will take that and we can improve communication, but ultimately when your finance director tells you to increase rates and you don't do it, I feel like it's a larger problem.
Would have made a difference if we knew that, kind of the agenda or the narrative prior to
Yeah,
going into at least maybe the December's meeting, so we could have mentally prepared.
Or at least-
Help me too. I got the spreadsheet like on the day of the meeting too, so.
Which idea was that to present the day of the meeting?
Present.
To make the information available? I mean, did they hold it back or just
I mean-
they worked late and to get around to it?
I think they just, I can't even speak to that. I don't.
Get why it's a bit.
I know, and I hear
Upsetting
you.
to this group.
and
Well,
I will
we-
commit to do better in the future. I just like, it's hard to increase rates. Like, we have to do it for water sewer all the time and people are not happy. But we also need clean water and we need to do a lot of I.
I think we understand that and we know what the town wants to make sure it's fiscally responsible. I think the real concern with this board is the fact that the communication was really, really tough. That we should have been at least brought together to sort of go through things and here's what we're thinking. Here are our numbers so that we can go to the select board or to Nancy and say, here are our numbers. Okay, why are we not together on these? What do we need to do? We didn't like getting caught blindsided. And it was very difficult. And I even reached over to Jim and I said, did they even look at the memo? And it was a good thing that we had sort of put together a little intro to the select board about, what we were going to talk about at the meeting. So at least there was a little something, because I'm sure the people watching that didn't really understand were saying, what the heck is going on here? So I think we were disappointed again about the communication before the meeting as well. So I think for us, we'll have to do a better job on our end, reaching out to Jim and select board to make sure that we're on a better page as we continue to move forward. So we'll get there.
Because I don't think anyone was saying that we weren't gonna raise rates, we just wanted to do it with a thoughtful approach to how we do it, where it makes sense towards the 5-year plan, on the same page, and everyone puts a lot of time and energy and work into it as a board, and we have it kind of crammed down our throat. Was a bad feeling, I think. Speaking personally, I walked away from the meeting very disappointed that we've always had a lot of support from the select board, right? And a lot of cooperation and hand in hand with everything that we've done over the years. And this was kind of a kick to the nuts. So it was a bad feeling. Excuse my language.
Mike.
Real quick, we'll probably wrap this up, but I mean, we all kind of agreed to a 5-year plan. All the band off want to be done with for 5 years. So now you get raise rates 10% or whatever. No big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not that much money, right?
Right.
But now we had to go back again. And then the people are gonna get really mad then, right? And then we talked about the shoulder season for 2 hours last month. About the electrical. Those weren't discussed at all. So if we're here talking about crying about money and returning earnings, there's still other ways to make money that we're not even discussing.
Well, we've already started discussing in some of the committee that's working on it. So, but good point. Is everybody good?
No, I just want to make one other comment. The pain for me went on when the memo to the patrons went out with the insinuation that the Waterways Commission condoned this. We didn't vote for this. We didn't agree to this, but the memo made it sound like we were the driver of the increase in rates, and that's not the case.
Well, I'm gonna take you on that one, Mr. Kreutzberg, dear friend that you are. The memo very clearly said that the decision was made by the select board, and I drafted at Stephen's request some of the language, including this particular language to which you're referring, and it said in consultation. It didn't say upon recommendation of Waterways. It didn't say in collaboration with Waterways. It said in consultation with Waterways, which I think is accurate. And they consulted with us. We consulted with them. They thanked us very much for our recommendation and went down their direction. But I was very careful, and I think Stephen was as well, because I had conversations with him about it, and Jim was as well, that it said in consultation. It did not in any way say that the Waterways was the prime recommender or the decision maker, because I was very careful about it.
And
Well,
that,
I disagree with you, because it wasn't in consultation with the Waterways Commission. It might have been several members that were in the room, but it wasn't the commission that was consulted on this particular act.
Oh,
Well,
it was misleading, probably. I agree with you.
Well, I'm not going to apologize for that language. I mean, the thing came out, it came out. I believe that it saying in consultation is indeed accurate via the chair of the commission who was there.
and it is here.
You know, and there you have it.
Yep.
We'll agree to disagree, Howie.
Anything else? Okay, we've got some work to do. Oh. I'd like to go out of order if everybody's okay with that. I'd like to go to the Harbor Master feasibility study with Rick. Rick's got to get out of here in a few minutes, so I just wanted to get an update, please.
Very little to report from my side. Maybe Stephen has more. We had another meeting that was publicized, and it was in the select board chambers during the day 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Like that. It was exactly like the presentation here. Chris came in. I forget if some of you guys were there or not. Chris came in, did the post-it thing. What one word is on everybody's mind that you want to do, all that sort of stuff. Exactly the same meeting here with other people in the audience.
Coast Guard was there,
Coast Guard was there, yeah.
town administrator was there, Nancy Holt was there, I was there. DPW director was there.
Police.
Were there any drafts
Fire.
different results? Was it
No,
similar to
no,
like
they're
the
similar.
same
Pretty
feedback?
similar.
No, I'm just curious. is that
Bathrooms,
different?
parking.
Okay.
Yeah,
Footprint, what's going on with the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Nothing new came up. I can't remember detail. There's no flag. I specifically
nothing that
recall
really
saying
stood
it's the
out.
same tape.
yeah,
That's all I got from my side. Steven, do you have anything else going on?
no, that's about where we're,
And when's the next one? I don't know.
just waiting to hear from Chris. They're
Yeah.
working. Trying to keep the meetings to a minimum because, we only have a couple and then it's extras. We wanna keep all the meetings to a minimum. with
Oh,
feasibility
extra
study.
fee?
Extra fee, yes, they
That's what
They
we
do.
want.
generally in
They
those,
give you so many
proposals.
meetings, and
Right, right.
Then they start.
Oh, you know who was there? Some of the people that were there was,
Linda,
yeah, Linda Ferguson.
Yep.
From, so she was there.
She advisory?
That's a good.
Steve
point.
Steve
Advisory
Warner,
and
no,
also-
She
Bob
also
Warner,
wants to end, so.
Bob Warner.
he was here. Was he there too?
Oh, no, Bob Warner was here.
Yep.
Yeah, it was here, yeah.
Yeah. But Linda Ferguson was there. There was another business person there from somewhere on Front Street, I forget where.
Good.
So, yeah.
Howie,
There were deliverables that were due in December and the consulting firm was running behind and didn't have them. So here we are a month later. Did they come up with any of the deliverables that they had talked about in their contract?
Not yet.
So there's been 2 months and no deliverables.
Not yet.
Wow.
What is-
The meetings were deliverables, but they don't have any documents. They have nothing drawn up. That's what you're looking for.
Is that?
Well, they were,
the-
go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering, what is the deliverable? Does anyone recall?
I've got a contract here, site
Pre-existing conditions of the property, for instance.
conditions
They've gone
review,
out there and looked at the properties, but they haven't sent anything back to us yet.
Yep. programming, equipment and inventory, so
They did
nothing much, yep. They are working on the preliminary designs currently, and that's, supposed to have that, organized by March.
They went through the Coast Guard building, they met with the Coast Guard. They looked at our building, we gave them an inventory of everything that we have in our building.
Great.
And they had their meetings.
Okay, thank you. Look at that, Mr. Murray.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, folks. 'Cause as I said, I got a West Coast meeting at
Right.
4 o'clock West Coast time. I think.
Okay, well,
Something's going on in DC.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Kelly, you have a question, sir?
Yes, quick question. I may have missed it, Dave, but do we ever get a copy of that presentation that was promised by the architect?
I have not seen anything. Well, which
Presentation. What presentation? 'Cause I could look.
presentation that we,
Like take pictures of the notes and stuff?
Yeah.
Just make pictures of it so he could write it down.
haven't seen anything, Brian, but we can dig into that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Presentation.
A harbor master report.
Yes, please.
So harbor master report, where documents and invoices prepared for the patrons. They'll be going out the end of February 1st. Probably go in the mail on March 1st. We'll also do via email as well as we have done in the past. Anybody have any questions on that? Hearing none. Seeing none. We have no update from the Army Corps of Engineering on the dredging permits. I did get a email from Leslie Fields. And they've completed all of the data collection for the following: bathymetric, wetlands resources, topographical survey, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 sediment coring. They submitted the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 sediment data from the laboratories to the Army Corps of Engineers on February 3rd. The Army Corps of Engineers did a quick review and asked to conduct Statalistic,
Oh, statistical?
I'm sorry,
Statistical.
statistical analysis. Sorry, I'm dyslexic, so
It's
forgive
okay,
me,
I'll help
I am
you.
dyslexic, so you gotta work with me a little.
Yeah,
It's all good.
Comparing the project area tissue concentrations with reference data. They need to go back to the biological testing lab for analysis, and they hope to have ready to be to provide the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers the info they need by February 21st. Once the Army Corps of Engineers has everything they need, it may take up to 2 months for them to issue a suitability determination where we could put the materials. They're in the process of the initial parts of permit applications. That's about it from Woods Hole Group. That's all I have.
Any questions for Stephen on that one?
I do have Dave Doffany, 356 Clap Road. When you mentioned Army Corps, any progress on jetty repair?
No,
Have you reached out to them and asked? Probably not a bad idea to give them a call. I know that you did a couple months ago.
it's from what I understand, it takes several years, it gets on the budget and it takes several years to get through the approval process.
I would recommend calling them once every other month, just keeping them honest.
Call every week.
That keeps them honest.
That sure does, huh? What's the
Anybody
mail?
have any questions on the dredging?
Yes,
Yes,
Hey, Brian.
quick question. There was some conversation, not only at our meeting, but I know also in town hall about possibly making us, and I don't know what the correct word is, but the primary on the river dredge and having Marshfield back out because of their recent vote. Have we investigated that and are we considering it?
that's the next item that I was gonna talk to you about.
Okay, then I'm your straight man. Go at it.
Okay, so we were waiting on a response from the Seaport Economic Council regarding dredge permits for the river. Marshfield and Scituate put in a grant application, we were approved. Scituate is an MBTA community. Marshfield is not an MBTA community. Spoke to our Master DeMayo. He has reached out to Ellen at Seaport. She has not reached back out to him. I reached out, left a message for Ellen to give me a call as well. I have not heard. We are waiting to hear whether Seaport is going to do anything because of the type of issue we're having with public safety in the river. If not, then we would probably have to go at it alone. And go back to Seaport, either change it to the town of Scituate, or I'd have to reapply.
Have we reached out to our elected officials on the state level? I know we have. Well, what are you hearing, Mike?
So me and Steve been in contact, so they're, Kearney and Connor are well aware of what's going on. It's not a capital request, it's for public safety. We've already
Okay.
talked about emergency dredging, those types of things, but you probably won't for emergency dredging. However, you're gonna have to piggyback to do the work, right?
Mhm.
So it's out there, I have the emails. With all the META stuff going on, the changes, and Marshall isn't compliant, one day, next day we are in compliance. It's impacted a lot of other grants as well. So I think the state's working through that, which is why we haven't heard from Ellen from Seaport. She's been very good to both Marshall and Scituate over the years.
Yep.
For millions of dollars to support and help. So I think it'll work its way out. I wish it would be sooner than later, so we can get into the process of getting the permits in hand. Because the state dredge grants just came out 2 days ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is millions of dollars just sitting there.
And those are shovel-ready projects only. I know that a few people sent me the information. They are shovel-ready only. You have to have all your permits in hand and ready to go. So it means your grant match, which we have, but you also need all your permits.
Yep.
Can't be waiting on even one.
But Marshall does have a grant permit for Green Harbor, and I'm gonna reapply anyway to see what happens.
Okay. Brian, any comments, questions?
None?
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Stephen. Anything else?
I got.
No unforeseen expenses. Couple months ago, you talked,
Dave,
oh, go ahead.
Franny has his hand up.
Sorry, Franny, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, did we get the okay from the Army Corps and a date for when those pilings will be removed from, my slips?
Just was gonna ask.
From your slips or the town slips? Huh?
From the town slips to get in my way so I can't operate my business.
Yeah, we did, as I told, the group last month, that we did get the approval to move them. And we are working on the construction document to move those. And I have to get 3 prices for that. So we are working on that, and we believe we'll have it done by probably the beginning of April.
And if we don't have it done by the beginning of April, can I still give you my deposit back?
You can have your deposit back today if you'd like.
No, I don't want it back, but I'd like to have the spot that I'm supposed to be operating out of, and I've been at a bit of a loss for a couple of years. So I just, the good news would be that they're gonna do it and,
Plan,
we'll have the
Fran.
space.
Been hoping to get this done for several years. I've been
Nice t-shirt.
pounding away on the Army Corps for this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. It's funny, Fran, because that was my question that I was gonna ask as well. And I know, Dave, we already talked about the jetties, the entrance of our harbor as well. Again, I think it's just constantly calling them and trying to get them to be aware of it. So thank you, Stephen. Does anybody have any other questions for the harbor master? Okay. Financial update. We sort of hit that pretty hard. Brian, is there anything else that we need to talk about financially?
No. Not at
Okay.
this point.
Thank you. Marketing committee, I started trying to get back on my, get things going
You want the
again.
Harbor Master Boats review?
Did I, I'm sorry. Brian, item B, financial update, Harbor Master Boats review.
Thank you. I didn't want to jump ahead on that because I got slapped by the harbor master when I brought that up a moment ago. So, Stephen, that was a joke.
I know, I'm smiling.
So the harbor master boat, currently on Stephen's capital plan, we've got I believe 4 items, the 2 dredge, the potential building, and then finally the unit 2 replacement outboard, which I think Stephen's got it in for somewhere in the vicinity of $39,000. One of the things I'm trying to work with Stephen on is not only if we have a major expense like a replacement of an outboard, but a rebuild takes away from our retained earnings. So I'm trying to understand where we are on all of our boats that we have currently in terms of hours. And then I'll work with Stephen and understand at how many hours. If it's 400, we do a rebuild, 2,000, we do a replacement, or whatever the numbers are that Stephen has his metrics by, so that I then can capture that and put it into our financial projections. So I met with Stephen privately on this, and I think Stephen did not have a problem with that. Stephen, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, normally what we do is I service the engines regularly as, so we don't have breakdowns. They get their oil changed, they get their 900-hour services. And then at about 2,200 hours, we put in for a replacement because it starts to get a little bit costly, and we can sell the old engine. Like when we repowered unit 1, we had a pair of 200 horsepower Yamahas, and we got, I think, $18,000 for them in the used market. The new engines were $32,000 total. So somebody thought they were valuable, but they were starting to cost us money. But the engines that I got when I came here, we were replacing lower units, we were replacing power heads. You know, there was no service done on them. They just were run into the ground. If you service them and take care of them, they'll take care of you, and they're worth something. That's how I
Again, you'll give me the hours just so I can put that into this giant Excel I have. I certainly will share with anybody and everybody if they want.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we check the hours every day in the summertime when we're operating, and we check the condition of the boat. We check all the equipment, whether it's, the AED, pumps, or life jackets, the first aid kit, all the equipment.
Great.
It's checked, in the morning, and then when the evening crew comes in, they check it as well.
Pre-flight inspection. Perfect. So we
So
do
Dave, if you leave that open for next month, maybe Stephen will have that information. If not, I'm sure we'll have it by the,
Shrink wrapped right now, so
I'm sorry?
boats are shrink wrapped right now.
No, I know
get-
that. I know that. So what I'm saying is either in the March meeting, I'm not sure when you're gonna start to pull the boats out, April, maybe?
Yeah, probably beginning of April.
Yeah, maybe in April, we can have those numbers. That'd be great.
I'm just a little curious though, if you're doing maintenance, you're working with a maintenance
I can
company,
check with Monahan.
they should have those numbers
Okay? If we
in
need
their
them
work
that-
orders.
I can get it with Monahan's.
Great.
Okay. Guys, any other questions for the master? I'm sorry, I go fast. Lot to talk about. Marketing group, I've sort of fallen off the wagon, but Fran reached out to me and I'm trying to get my act together. I reached out to Mike Bierce earlier in this week and he's just very busy. So we'll try to get things moving again and have some things happening. I'll have a better report next month. We did that. Mike DeMayo, Right to Fish.
Thank you. So thank you to Brian Corney, Dave Doffney, and Rick Murray for helping me and Dave with some edits. So I'm not sure if you share the document.
I cannot, I'm sorry. Wrong computer.
I brought some copies. For everyone. You got on that truck. I'll give you a couple of copies of what it looks like. You guys want to take a minute to read it. I researched it pretty well, and if you look at this bylaw, I kind of labeled it as section 30912 alpha A, right to commercial fish with fair access and related activities. If you read through it, you'll see what it states. Look at the Harpswell, Maine ordinance or regulation. I looked at many other NOAA stuff. I looked at the colonial ordinances from 1641 to 1647, which the town of Scituate already has a right to fish, foul, navigate. That's really almost word for word from the colonial ordinance, but it is in the bylaw. That's where I need that for this section 30912A for the right to commercial fish with fair access and related activities. Dave, if you want to read to everybody, that would be great. I kind of have a chest cold. I can give you my copy if you want. I'm not sure the folks online have it.
Yep, nope, I've got it.
Okay.
Thank you. New bylaw, section 30912 alpha, right to commercial fish with fair access and related activities will be the title. To see if the town will vote to amend section 30912 waterways of bylaws of the town of Scituate to include section 30912 alpha as follows. The right to commercially and recreational fish and to conduct aquaculture activities is hereby recognized to exist within the town of Scituate and its waterways, and to extend out 3 nautical miles. Notwithstanding any provisions of this bylaw should not impact, change, or restrict access to commercial wharfs, piers, floats, docks, moorings, parking, loading, unloading areas, both publicly and privately owned, that are used for local catch sales, exports of commercial catch, both domestic and international. Activities may occur on holidays, weekends, and weekdays on both private and town-owned property. There may be instances when incidental noise from commercial equipment and or odors of catch and bait are unavoidable. Residents in general shall be cognizant of parcels of land, both residential and commercial, that store commercial equipment, and that commercial fishing is a year-round process of building, repairing gear for specific targeted species of seafood. The referenced commercial activities shall be recognized by the residents as part of the town's historical heritage to avoid potential conflicts and nuanced claims. Commercial fishermen shall in part be stewards of our working waterfront and promote economic opportunities consistent with the goals of the town as expressed through its various boards, committees, and actions. Moreover, nothing in this bylaw shall be deemed to authorize acquisitions of land and or to impose regulations, which actions are subject to state law, local zoning, town bylaws, and the vote of town meeting. And that is the information, that is the proposal of the bylaw.
I think everybody, had input to it and helped though.
Very, very well written. I know that I've heard from a few of the commercial fishing guys. They're really excited about this. And again, it's commercial fishing plays such an important role in our community. To have this to help them, give them a little bit more. Anything they can get is always, I think, very helpful. So thanks to Mike for just sort of grabbing this and really working hard on it, and everybody else that's helped out. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
So where do we need to vote on this to be able to move it forward?
Recommend that.
So what, make a recommendation to the board?
Yes.
Is there any comments on it?
Does anybody have any thoughts before we move and send it up?
No thoughts, but I just wanted to ask, is this pretty similar to what Hopkins did, or?
No, it's Harpswell was all over the place.
Was real?
Yeah, this is much more concise, and it sort of really fits our bylaw.
That's my copy, if you just want to scan, just
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
quell your appetite, but.
Dave Haley.
Have we ever discussed like a definition of commercial? You know, it's like we get the tuna guys there for a couple months in the summer.
It's in the bylaws,
That
it's
are-
in the town bylaws, what a commercial fisherman is.
Okay,
Related to if you would get a commercial mooring
Yeah,
or commercial slip, right?
commercial.
All right.
it's holding a,
It's actually, in you have to have, it has to be your primary,
51% of your
Yeah.
income has to come from sales
Fishing.
catch.
yes.
Was a hiccup that they had because they had a charter boat that wanted to come in and they're not actually making money through the sale of cash. They're making money by taking people out.
But isn't it also defined in what
It's in the
it's
bylaws.
catching? Yeah.
It's-
Okay, I was just
it's
curious
actually-
if that ever came
If you
up.
open the
Like,
bylaws-
if you came
Sure,
across it.
I'm not sure like
Yeah.
that.
And then
would
we also
qualify
put
even
in-
if it's 51%, right?
And we also put in there that you have to have a, limited entry permits,
Yeah,
whether. state
I
or
was
federal.
just curious if that ever has come up, because you got, like I talked to the guys at the gas dock, and they're like, everybody with a striper permit's telling them that they're commercial, and they want friggin',
Well, there's,
they want the nickel off their fuel before they,
Yeah, right.
or they go out their $300,000 set of console.
Look at Nick's ready.
We did change to add aquaculture, I believe,
Oh, okay.
right?
So,
Wasn't that
Yeah,
added
yes,
to the
Yeah.
bylaw, I
yes.
think?
so it's in
It's
here, it's in here as well,
In
and
Scituate.
I'll talk about it when we get to the shellfish part, so it is included. Furthermore, we also talked about this group, about the right to farm bylaw and writing it. The right to farm bylaw breaks down definitions of every animal and everything else. It really didn't fit in the waterways section of the town bylaw. So,
right, and also there's already the state already recognizes right to farm.
so, I know we talked about that, but
Designation for a community to adopt that just strengthens, the advocacy between the town and the state and the activity. But, and I'll, if I can, with Dave, so one of the things we talked about was it's that gray area of commercial versus the guy, I always felt as though a commercial guy got paid hopefully when he was done versus a guy that got paid before they did anything, so a charter and stuff like that. But there's still a great economic need to protect that activity within the harbor, and that's why that recreation was put in there. So it's very important for the hotels, the restaurants, the gas starts, everything that goes along with it.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like, kind of was left out of it. It's a commercial activity. It's not a commercial, fishing.
Right, I was just curious, I mean,
Trickle down economics is what it is.
yeah, it's just, if there
But
was
this here
ever
is- this here is a
a
big-
hard and fast definition of what. Well, like you said, everything's a commercial endeavor, what,
Well, it's,
Well,
it's to protect the town pier, Russo, it's to protect all that stuff for many, many years to come.
Right.
no,
That
well,
would be-
thank you.
Any other questions? I would assume we should probably, put together some type of motion to be able to get that, up for, inclusion into, the town meeting.
Does it have to go through other boards to be, if I'm
So-
not mistaken, it has to go to bylaw review, right? And,
That's after it makes it to the town warrant.
okay, all right, I wasn't sure how that,
Meeting.
okay,
It's
got
on the warrant. We have it on for a
Right,
placeholder. on the
placeholder.
warrant.
it, right.
But then it would need to go to town council is what I would
Right.
recommend.
Yeah.
And I guess it could, yeah, it could go to the committee as well.
So I think our motion would be really, if it is,
To move forward.
is supporting it, right, as the waterways, then it goes to the select board, right, and then from there it goes off to legal, whoever else.
So I would entertain a motion that we accept, this, proposed bylaw as written, and send it to the select board for, further review. Do I need to add anything more to that motion? I may, anybody would like to,
Did anyone capture that? Write it down?
well, Alicia's there. She's got it, and, we're also, this is also being recorded, so.
Yeah.
Would anybody, entertain that, motion? Anybody like to,
I'll second
you can first it.
it, I'll first.
Would anybody like to second, that? Thank you, TJ. Okay, any more discussion on it? Again, really great job, very important, for this. I'll do a roll call. Brian Cronin is departed. Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Dave Sinkowski,
Yes.
Howie Kretzenberg,
Yes.
Rick has departed, Dave Haley,
Yes,
TJ,
Yes.
Stephen,
I'll abstain.
Dave says yes. And it passes. Thank you. Nice work. Should we, and I want to go back on old business, and I didn't put in here, I'm sorry about that, but should we be doing anything with the shoaling at the entrance of the South River?
Already listed in the Coast Guard notice to mariners.
Right.
Been there for 3-4 years.
So,
I've asked Noah to come down numerous times to survey it.
Yep.
And they're too busy. So when somebody dies, you can have on my emails that state. I'll take a look at
Contacted
this.
them as well, Coast Guard.
okay, so they know, but okay, and again, another one of those safety issues, and just I worry about things like that.
Well documented.
Thank you.
And if we put buoys there, then we own it.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That happened.
And you tell them where to go.
Yep.
No.
Bad idea.
So what do they have, low water?
Oh, you can't get in that low, right?
That.
Really bad.
You would think they would armor the cliff, but they still won't do that, so it's just, that's the donor
Yeah.
site.
Right.
Collapses and washes in,
Yeah,
but they won't armor it.
yeah,
Whether we've been down that road
yeah.
a number of times,
Mhm.
so it's we're not touching this and we're not touching that,
left, like towards the depot.
yeah.
There's many theories as to why it fills in. You have two rivers fighting each other. One river is more dominant than the other one.
Mhm.
I mean, basically, once it flows off the South River, basically. And
Yeah.
you know what? In the future, it may happen.
Yeah.
Go back to 1998, it was one river.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
As long as you open the other end, I think we're all right.
Yeah.
The Rexium.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Don't tell Brian Cronin.
No, actually, they might be on one of the part of Sutter's Fruit.
Yeah, it's been, it's been going back over 80.
Well, I know, we ran around, the coast 29 ran around. We
Yeah.
we grew 2 units, well, units in front of them,
Oops.
so.
I think a lot of people in the last
Keep
year.
running a paddleboard around.
That's what the grant money
That's
was for,
something.
to correct that. Maybe we should go for an airboat.
Oh, gosh, don't give me any ideas.
That would work.
Let's finish this thing up. Liaison reports, Economic Development Commission, they gave an update at the select board meeting on the 21st. They did a state of the business community just to show the value of businesses in town and where people are coming in from various most people that are utilizing our town and enjoying our businesses and restaurants and everything are pretty much South Shore, but they're seeing it spread out a little bit farther and of the western or the central part of the state coming to see us. So they were I think the select board was very pleased with the report that was provided. I continue to try to attend the monthly meetings and we'll continue to do that. Mike, anything new on Cole Parkway?
No, we haven't met since our last meeting. I think our next meeting is March 4th. I think it's right before the Waterways meeting, the day before, or something like that. So,
We are on the 6th.
yeah, so a couple days ahead of time, so I should have an update for next meeting.
Okay. Piece 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4.
That work they were doing in the, I guess, the western side of the parking lot there, what was that? Was that just water mains or something?
That was water mains for the harbor master building, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Coast Guard building, harbor master building,
yeah,
Yep.
and the marina.
yeah,
And
and a
all
fire
that.
hydrant.
Because of the fire hydrants was, there was one fire hydrant that was failing, so when they started to work on that, they found out that the pipes had all deteriorated, so they replaced it all.
I was gonna, just before Shellfish, Howie, I had pulled off Pier 44, but what do you know? We get an email from Paul. Did you want to talk about Paul's update on Pier 44?
I think they're running into the same issues that we are with dredging and the associated boards that have to review it, and it's probably going to be prolonged. I'm not surprised, but I didn't see anything there that was like new. Did you?
No. They're still looking for a special permit from Scituate ZBA tentative February 25, Chapter 91 from DEP Waterways tentative February 25 site plan reviews with the Scituate Planning Board will be scheduled once they get those permits in. So nothing new, but he just wanted to update everybody. So thank you, Howie. Shellfish Advisory. Anything going on?
I don't know, you wanna go or?
Yeah, so, no, folks have been asking over the past couple months about doing water samples in Scituate Harbor. That hasn't been happening in the past few months, and the water quality's come back almost perfect, so that's gonna continue. With the bylaw we just voted on, aquaculture is in there. That's to take care of future things like upwellers, growing of kelp grass and those types of things in the harbor potentially, so. That's what the bylaw kind of triggers, aquaculture as one broad term, so. That's why that was put in there. Not the rivers are still open, been kind of cold to go clamming, but.
Yes,
once
it
the weather
is.
breaks, I'm sure people will be out there.
I gotta get my license.
So we know that the three aqua farmers met with the select board and asking to extend the timing of their grants to 5 years.
Yep.
And to increase the footprint. Didn't seem like there was anyone opposed to it, but I don't know what the next step is.
I believe the next step was for your annual reports and then come back to the board with that. So there's like a requirement in the regulations to do reporting. So I think the board was comfortable with extending as long as the report's in. Kind of like housekeeping,
And the size,
and we've got to look into expanding. Yes,
Yep.
I think we're gonna be meeting with council.
What about another flight of VCs?
Good question.
I'm just, I didn't know if that was on a schedule or.
Yeah, I mean, it's not on the schedule. I mean, I guess it'd be something we'd have to think about.
And of course, they, the different growers have different ideas on how they want to try to expand their plots. So very interesting, and the way that they actually do their farming, they have different methods. So
Yeah, I've talked
Very-
to Larry quite a bit about.
very
how
interesting.
he's handling his stuff. I looked into upwellers
Yeah.
and, when those oysters get up over a certain length, you gotta get them out of the harbor. And it would be nice to have a place to park those
Yeah.
that have gotten over 25mm instead of having the state come down and destroy it. So I just didn't know if there was any open areas, even if it wasn't a full acreage, just a place to put, you know, overflow from an upwell, basically, so it didn't have to be destroyed.
Well, everything is a permit and,
Yeah.
EMF has regulations where upwell, where there's 20 more boats or moorings. It's not gonna fly, I don't think.
They don't let you have upwellers where there's more than 20 boats. That's not even true, because there's one in
It's, yeah.
other harbors
You
around,
can't, I know that Dave
right?
Doffney, Clap Road, I know that they talked about growing seed, transporting it to a site.
Yeah, grow up.
Once you got your seed grown, transport, that's where it's grown and harvested. You can't harvest, or you can't take it from, let's say, North Scituate and bring it to the harbor and store it in the
No, no,
water
no,
there. That's
I get that. That's why the state says once they get, they
right.
have to be out of that upweller in that harbor water. Anything bigger than 25mm needs to be destroyed. So once they hit 25mm, they've turned into a pumpkin and you've got to go because they need to finish growing out in an approved area.
Right, but that time, you would time that so that they would be. I would assume that you would time that growth so that they would be relocated to the growing area in the spring. And then in the fall, they go into storage on land in a truck and then they'll come back out again.
Yeah, once they're out of the harbor, they're gone. They're
Yeah,
not coming
yeah,
back
they
to the
don't come
harbor
back.
again, unless it's on a plane, so.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? Thank you. Any new business? Nothing from the guys, okay. Police has departed,
I did get a text from Craig with his report.
okay.
It's very brief. Typical Craig.
Yeah.
Try to do it my best Kiefer voice. Their last scheduled water sampling was from Bathurst Beach. They missed it due to ice. They're scheduled to do another one next Monday, weather permitting. That's all he's got.
Okay,
And I sent Brian over the hours to unit 2 and the pump out boat. I'll get unit 1 tomorrow and I'll get unit 3.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Stephen.
Anything, fisherman lobstermen? What's going on?
Lobstering, they closed the wedge. The environmentalists shopped around for a circuit judge that reversed. The other judges deeming the closure illegal. So it's like, now they're the hell did they word that? Now the closure that was deemed illegal has now been deemed legal. So you gotta get your gear out of
The
it.
reversal was
They
reversed.
overturned
Yeah,
it.
the reversal of the double negative. So everybody's scratching their heads. Long story short, they're giving everybody a month to get the gear out of the wedge. The state waters guys are already in. I finished up on the last day. But from the state line out to 7030 from 4212 north had been open and now it's closed. They get a month to get their gear out of the water. There's a lot of guys in there. There's a lot of guys from way down the bay, guys from Plymouth and stuff like that, that have shuffled gear up to keep it in the water. The sad part is as of the last flyover, there's absolutely 0 whales at Mass Bay. There were 2 whales bouncing around over by P-Town about 3 weeks ago. And then the subsequent flyover showed no whales in the bay. So we're all closed, out of business, and there's we're all up
nothing there.
on Jeffrey's Ledge, and the government has told those guys to try to fish with 1 buoy, which is, they told you is illegal, but they want guys to drop one end of their troughs. So yeah, it's a mess. Guys are scrambling now to get gear home. Last year, it was a reverse situation, and guys were actually bringing gear home, and they sent out an email that said it's open. You guys literally turned around and
A week later, was closed for a week.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
yeah.
Just enough time to get to
Tucker
it.
was bringing stuff home and they got an email that said, you know, it's open, and then John Mason started roping up gear and setting gear. Right, so,
So I can add to Dave's report when he's done.
but
on the
that,
Federal part.
that's the big thing now is what the status is with the wedge.
And they haven't given any timelines yet, right?
It's closed effective February 1st,
Yep.
but they're giving guys till March 1st to get the gear out of the water. They don't want you bringing bait with you. Cause they don't want you baiting that gear. They want you only going out to retrieve
Okay.
it.
They're actually using our federal tracker, so anybody with a federal permit has a tracker 24/7, 365. It shoots a signal every 30 seconds where the boat is. So what they're doing now is they're tracking the boats. There's 26 boats from what I heard the other day that are still fishing gear in the wedge. And a lot of activity the last couple of weeks running gear up there. So they're not bringing it home, they're fishing it up there. You have a $10 lobster, this lobster's still around and, yeah, no fishing it, and they can track your boat to see if you're setting gear back, if you're hauling or setting back, so. It's no joke.
They're always
And
watching.
there's no whales at all.
And no wells, of course.
Fish wise, I know, Kevin had said that they backed off of that like 90% cut on codfish.
Mm.
But the percentage they were gonna take, I don't think they,
Still like 40 though, right?
yeah, it was still.
Where he
really
said
big
40.
hit.
Wasn't great.
No,
They
it wasn't 90, but it was still 40.
Bill Lynch used to have 50,000 on his landing permit, which is down to 1,800 right now, and then with the next round of this, it'll be like 700 or 800.
Jeez.
You actually spend more time trying to avoid fish.
Yeah.
That's-
And you can't leave, guys are holding on to what little fish they have. So Kevin said he can't even lease it, even though it's a loss. He has to lease the fish, he has to have the lease on his, explain it like a debit card. So he needs X amount of codfish just to leave the harbor, just to go fishing in his bank account to cover whatever he might catch. And he can't even lease the fish that he'd be leasing at a loss to gain access to the haddock and the yellowtail and the blackbass. He can't even get a hold of that codfish to have in his account, so he can even leave it go.
I don't even know how they keep things going. It's just so insane.
Neither can the government.
Yeah, right?
Well,
A lot of panicked people at NOAA, thank Christ.
well, appreciate the updates. Any other comments, suggestions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. It's okay, you can say, go ahead. Oh, yeah, I know you guys can't.
I can't, I'll second that or first it.
You'll-
First it.
Yep, you'll make the motion.
I'll make the motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
TJ, thank you. We are out at 7:34. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you.